Alright, we're back talking about some FF7. We're talking Ever Crisis today, but this does actually potentially pertain to the Remake project, Remake Part 3, because we actually got a trailer last night for the upcoming update for the game, coming out on July 17th. This is going to be a pretty major update that adds a new chapter to the Final Fantasy VII story within Ever Crisis, but it's also going to introduce Vincent to the game finally, a playable Vincent, which is pretty exciting. I think it's also going to introduce guilds, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't super kept up with all of the what's happening with FF7 Ever Crisis. I also believe the update will be adding like a new R ability, Reprieve, where like if you take a lethal shot, you become invincible for a brief period of time, you gain some HP. Kind of cool. For the guild stuff, I don't know yet if I'm going to make one or just join up with some random guild or some shit in the game. But if I do end up creating one, I might make like a community post on the YouTube if you guys want to join, if you guys play Ever Crisis. Just kind of moving on to the point of the video here. With that trailer we got last night for this update, they showed off Vincent's Galian Beast form, which is cool. It'd be a little bit cooler if we didn't already have that in Rebirth. Not that that's a bad thing. You know, we've got to actually fight Vincent in Rebirth, which is pretty damn awesome. It's something the fans were wanting. And I wonder if that was always planned to happen with the second game. Like, if they always wanted us to fight Vincent, or if that was, like, them listening to the fans and gave us that fight. But that was a fantastic surprise that we were kind of hopeful for. Something we discussed quite a bit with Ever Crisis over the years is the possibility of it, like, kind of spoiling shit for the Remake project or showing stuff before we're actually going to see it. In regards to Vincent, that can go a couple of ways. For one, weapons. Ever Crisis has a lot of crazy-ass weapons for characters, but there are like kind of the default weapons that you have in the Remake project, like the Buster Sword and the like Mithril Saber, Hard Edge, things like that or whatever. Obviously, Part 3 for the Remake project is still a couple years out, so we're going to have like years of like Vincent weapons. So inevitably, I feel like we got to get a sneak peek at some of the weapons he's going to have in the third game. Also, we might get to see some of his upcoming like attacks or abilities when it comes to the third game, right? Because Ever Crisis works similar to Remake in a way where when you equip a weapon, it gives you an ability, right? You can't permanently learn them like you can in the Remake project, but equipping one of Vincent's weapons and getting to see his abilities, we might get a sneak peek at some of the abilities that he could use when it comes to the third game. Things can get potentially more interesting is that, for those of you that don't play Ever Crisis, each character has multiple limit breaks. 3, in fact. The situation from here is pretty obvious. Every character has multiple limit breaks. Vincent should have 3 limit breaks as well. Well, we get to see the other forms of Vincent Valentine. Something we've been looking forward to for a very long time, just looking at the other forms of Vincent. We've got to see other iterations of the Galian Beast with something like Dirge of Cerberus, and we got to see Chaos and Dirge of Cerberus, but there's like the two in the middle. There's Hellmasker and there's Gigas that we haven't, or Death Gigas or whatever his name is. We haven't got to see at all in any sort of like modern iteration, and maybe Ever Crisis will be the first time that actually happens. The closest we've kind of got to this is with actually First Soldier, the mobile-only battle royale that was out there that lasted like a year or whatever. There's actually an outfit you could get in the game, like a mask and like a back bling that was Hellmasker. There's the chainsaw on the back and like kind of a hockey mask sort of thing. And that was exciting. I remember us making a video about that actually back then, just because that was our first potential look at some aspect of Hellmasker, right? The finalized version that Vincent would turn into would probably look very, very different, but you get a basic idea of what the mask would look like and the chainsaw potentially that Hellmasker would wield. As of right now, there's not really a reason to expect Vincent not to have his other forms, and I say that because if you go into Ever Crisis and look at the character's limit breaks from OG FF7, they all have the limit breaks from the original game, except for Cait Sith. He's a little different, obviously, because he had some weird limit breaks with the original FF7. But like Cloud, for example, has like Blade Beam, Clem Hazard, and Cross Slash, and then Barrett's got like Grenade Bomb, Mind Blow, and Satellite Beam, right? Eva's got like Somersault, Water Kick, Dolphin Blow. Yuffie's got like Bloodfest, Landscaper, and like Clear Tranquil, and like I know Aerith's got like Healing Wind, Still Evils, whatever. You know the limit breaks if you played the original FF7. There are a few things that can work against us, of course. For one, the basic one, them not wanting to spoil something that's going to be in Remake Part 3, right? If they do have aspects of wanting to use those other forms for Vincent, they might not want to show it off years ahead of time, right? And that's pretty fair, and I think is a strong defense against it. So in that regard, they might have like the Galian Beast as one of his limit breaks, and then they might just have like some basic kind of like gun attacks or some shit, since that's the weapons that he uses, as at least one of his other limit breaks, if not both of the other limit breaks. I think that'd be very, very boring if they went that route, just because we have monster forms, we want to see those, but also there's multiple gun characters when it comes to Ever Crisis, right? We have Matt and Lucia from First Soldier both use guns. Matt uses like a little handgun and a sword, and then Lucia just uses actual guns. Then you also have Barrett with his gun arm, right? And if we have Vincent who's also using gun weapons, also using like gun-based like limit breaks, it'd be very fucking boring, kind of lazy. Something else that might factor into whether or not they have multiple forms for Vincent is that his limit break might be different compared to other characters, because when it comes to Vincent's limit breaks, they're not just one attack, that's it, right? When it comes to OGFF7, you turn into that monster, and you're that monster for the rest of the fight. I don't think that Vincent would stay into his Galian Beast form for the rest of the fight when it comes to Ever Crisis, but you do have like timed attacks and abilities when it comes to the game, right? Like buffs and debuffs, things that last like 15 seconds or whatever. So I could see you turning into the Galian Beast as Vincent in the game and then staying that way for a set amount of time. In that regard, you wouldn't necessarily need to have multiple limit breaks when it comes to the character of Vincent, because it's not just one attack and done. It's you turn into this powerful monster and you stay that way for a set amount of time. It's just pure speculation, and I hope that's not the case, but I'm trying to think of reasons why they wouldn't have multiple forms for Vincent, multiple monster forms or whatever, right? Something else that could potentially work against Vincent having multiple monster forms when it comes to Ever Crisis is that while we are up to 3 limit breaks per character in the game, when it comes to the OG FF7, all the characters have, or most of the characters have, 7 limit breaks to pull from, right? Whereas Vincent doesn't. He only has 4, 1 per level, right? If they were to come out the gate with, his first 3 limit breaks from the original FF7, they'd only have 1 more to access with Chaos. So it's possible that they might kind of drip feed his limit breaks over time. Eventually add a second one, eventually add a third one. Or maybe they come up with more monster forms, which is actually a pretty interesting prospect. Actually, something we've sort of talked about on the channel less than 2 years ago. I did a video talking about the other forms for Vincent and kind of wanting lore for them, specifically Hellmasker and Death Gigas, because we already have a bit of lore for Galian Beast and we get a lot of lore for Chaos, of course. In the video, I did talk about the potential there being new monster forms when it comes to the remake project, because they've sort of ignored Hellmasker and Death Gigas. I think the only other time they popped up is with Dissidia. Like, those were some forms that Vincent could take in the game, which is pretty cool. That's kind of like the only other time we've ever seen them outside of the original FF7. So there's almost like this level of them like not liking those forms or not wanting to use those forms, but the remake project is a lot of fan service, right? And people do want to see those forms. So I do expect them to be in the 3rd remake game. I'm just not 100% whether or not we're going to see them in the next couple of days in Ever Crisis. That's kind of what's exciting, right? Building a little bit of anticipation. While I am having fun playing Ever Crisis kind of in my free time, and I am excited to have Vincent in the game, like now there's a possibility that after all these years, the remake project was announced back in 2015. We might finally get to see like a modern interpretation of Death Gigas and Hellmasker. And that could be happening very, very soon. So of course, pass off to you guys. What are your thoughts on this? For one, if you play Ever Crisis, do you think they're going to have Vincent have 3 monster forms right out the gate? Or are they going to do like a monster form and some other kind of basic limit breaks? If you don't play Ever Crisis, are you going to hop into it because Vincent's joining the game? Because we're going to still have to wait a couple years until the 3rd game, obviously. And this would be kind of our first time to get to play with Vincent finally, right? After all this time. It's attached to the remake project. It's not quite the same, but it's still something. Also looking forward to a lot of Vincent's outfits when it comes to Ever Crisis, because they have some pretty cool outfits in the game for multiple characters, right? Pretty much every character's got some pretty cool outfits. But I can see them going a lot of cool fucking directions with Vincent. Even if they don't have like those other monster forms, you could do those outfits, right? You could do like a Hellmasker outfit for Vincent come like Halloween or some shit, and Death Gigas as well. Anyways, that's the video, my dudes. Subscribe to if you guys are new. Social networks in the description below. Follow me on Twitter, ffvii. That's it. Bye.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Rogaine or leave it like Cobain.